Hello everyone. It's about time. Maybe we can make a start. Let's bow to the Buddha. 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, so today I'd like to share with you the story of Buddha. Why is it important for us to know Buddha? Buddha is our teacher. And as a Buddhist or a newcomer to Buddhism, it is very fundamental to understand the life of the Buddha. So let us start. Buddha is the awakened one, the founder and the teacher of Buddha Dharma. His personal name was Siddhartha Gautama. He was born into a warrior clan known as the Shakya, which is why he is often called Shakyamuni, the sage of Shakyas. Other names of the Buddha are Bhagawa, Tathagata, Siddhartha, Gautama, Sugata, and Sita. He was raised in Kapilavastu, where he had a wife and a child. But he left home at the age of 29 to find the way to end sufferings of life and death. In the Anguttara Nikaya, is said, a unique being, an extraordinary, may arise in this world for the benefits of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the good, benefits, and happiness of gods and men. Who is this unique being? It is the Tathagata, the exalted, fully enlightened one. So this is the description of Buddha. Buddha is a very unique person. He brings an important message to the world to benefit all of us. Prince Siddartha is the son of King Śuddhodana and Queen Māyā. King Śuddhodana ruled in Kapilavastu. He was kind and generous, modest and just. Śuddhodana, the king of Shakya race, had wed many queens, many wives, but his favorite is his queen Māyā. She was very beautiful. She was victorious. She was intelligent, and she was practicing precepts. She was truthful, and her conduct was exemplary. King Śuddhodana and Queen Māyā lived happily and quietly in Kapilavastu. One night, Queen Māyā had a dream. In her dream, she saw holy elephants around her. And later, she told the king Śuddhodana about the dream. And she said, "Oh, my lord, there are Brahmins who are clever at interpreting dreams. Send for them. They will know if this palace has been visited by good or evil, and if they should rejoice or mourn." The king agreed. So the Brahmins, familiar with the mystery of dreams, was invited to the palace. When they had heard Māyā's story, they spoke in this manner. "A great joy is to be yours, O king, O queen. A son will be born to you, distinguished by the favor of the gods. If one day he should renounce royalty, leave the palace, cast love aside. If seized with compassion for the world, he should live the wandering life of a monk. He will deserve marvelous praise. He will richly deserve magnificent gifts. He will be adorned by the world, for he will give them that which they hunger after. Oh, master, oh, mistress, your son will be a Buddha. The Brahmins withdrew. The king and the queen looked at each other, and their faces were joyful with happiness and peace. Śuddhodana then ordered the alms to distribute to the poor in Kapilavastu, and the food were given to the hungry, drinks to the thirsty, and the woman received flowers and perfume. Māyā became the object of their veneration. The sick crowded her path, and when she extended the right arm, they were cured. The right hand, so when she touched them, they were cured. The blind can saw, the deaf heard, the dumb spoke, and when the dying touched the blade of grass or she had gathered, they recovered at once, and their health and recovered their health and their strength. And above the city, a ceaseless melody was born into the wind. Exquisite flowers rained from the sky, and the songs of gratitude rose on the air around the palace walls. This symbolizes this Buddha is a very important person coming to this world. So why Queen Māyā had these powers is because she is pregnant with Buddha. Queen Māyā gained this supernatural power that she had never had before. And everyone is happy and feel this happiness as well. The other thing we can learn here when we have something happy or happen to us is it's best to share with all beings. Like what the king did, giving food to the poor and benefits them. Share happiness with all people. For us, instead of getting many birthday presents each year, maybe isn't it better to do something meaningful and use that money to help and give others or to buy food for the poor? This is more meaningful than getting a lot of presents and stuck at home, because in the future you got to recycle them or give it to others. Better to make others happy as well, rather than being happy yourself for a short time. Queen Māyā was going to give birth after many months, and on her way back to her parents, she gave birth during the journey. Buddha was born on the full moon day of May in the Lumbini Park. At the Kapilavastu on the Indian borders of the present Nepal. He was born around 566 or 632 BCE. So Queen Māyā delivered a beautiful baby. The messenger quickly reported to the king, oh my lord, a son is born to you, a son who will bring great glory to your house. Prince Siddartha Gautama is the son of the king Śuddhodana and Queen Māyā. So 7 days after his birth, Queen Māyā died. Her sister, Prajapati, raised him as her own child. A mystic foretold that the prince would be a great king or a Buddha. Now, the king wanted his son to be a king and raised him amid song and dance, and the king kept him in the palace, cut off from the misfortune of life. As a prince, Siddhartha was trained in warfare and educated in arts and science of the time. He's doing very well with all subjects. Soon, the prince blossomed into a young man of great strength, beauty, and wisdom. At the age of 19, he won his beautiful wife, Yashodhara, in an archery contest. Passing the days in riches and happiness, showing him with every privilege and luxury and sheltering him from the harsh realities of the world outside the palace, he knew nothing of poverty or suffering. His father, the king, did everything in his power to ensure that his son and the future generation will have no reason to pursue religious life. So his dad, the king, tried to stop him from knowing the truth in this world. One day, someone spoke in the presence of the prince and told how the grass in the woods has become a tender green, and the birds in the trees were singing of the spring, and how in the ponds the great lotuses were blooming. Nature had broken the chains that winter has forged, and around the city, those gardens, so dear to young maidens, were also covered with flowers. So everywhere is like very pretty. And like animals are coming out, the elephants too, running in the garden. So that the prince had this irresistible desire to leave the palace and to check out this beautiful place in this nice weather. The king learned of his son's desire, and he knew that there's no way to opposite it. But he thought, Siddhartha must see nothing that will trouble the serenity of his soul. He must never suspect the evil there is in this world. I shall order the road clear of beggars and those who are sick and infirm, and all these suffering people, all out of the sight, all move away. So the city was decorated with garlands like flowers and streamers, and looked very pretty. And the king ordered a very nice, very pretty, magnificent carriage for the prince to ride and parade in the city. So the beggars and the aged were all ordered to get off the street where the prince would pass. When the time came, the king sent for his son, and there were tears in his eyes as he kisses his son on the brow. He lingered over him. Then he said to him, "Go." And with that word, he gave him permission to leave the palace, though his heart spoke differently. So his dad didn't want him to leave the palace, but he had no choice. So he made this fake look. Everything looks perfect to send his son to go out and have a look. So the prince's carriage was made of gold. It was drawn by 4 horses, and those horses were also wearing gold decorations. And the strings of that carriage is also made with the gold, the gold linen threads. So only the rich, the young, and the beauty were allowed on the streets he drove through. And they stopped and watched him as he went by. Some praised him for the kindness of his glance. Others adorned his dignified behavior. Others admired the beauty of his features, while many glorified his enthusiastic strength. And they all bowed before him. So he was very good looking, and is somewhat like when we are praising Prince William in the past, like when he is young and good looking and everyone likes him, yeah, when they're young. So it's somewhat like that. Okay. The women in the house heard the cries in the street. They awoke and left their household task and ran to the windows or quickly ascended to the terraces and gazing at him in admiration. They murmured, "Oh, happy the wife of such a man." And he, at the sight of the city's splendor, at the sight of the wealth of the man and the beauty of the woman, felt a new joy pour into his soul. So the prince was very happy because everything he saw was perfect. Nice looking man, healthy woman, and the city is perfect, and he is very happy. But the gods were jealous of the celestial felicity enjoyed by this city of this world. They sent an old man. They immediately create old man creatures. And in order to trouble Siddhartha's mind, they sent him down on the road the prince was traveling. The man was leaning on a staff, a stick or something to lean on. He was worn out and decrepit. His veins stood out of his body, and his teeth chattered. And his skin was like a maze of black wrinkles. He looks very ugly. And a few dirty gray hairs hung from his scalps. His eyelids had no lashes and were red-rimmed. His head and his limbs were not very good, were like sort of like old looking and not function that well. So the prince saw this being so different from the man around him. He gazed at him with sorrowful eyes, and he asked the charioteer, the driver of the horse carriage, "What is this man with gray hair and the body so bent? He clings to his staff with skinny hands. His eyes were dull and his limb weakened. Is he a monster? Has nature made him thus? Or is it a chance? Why like suddenly there's a person look like that in front of him?" He had never saw anything like this on this earth. So the prince is like shocked. "What is this?" he asked. So the charioteer should not have answered. So the driver of the carriage didn't answer him. But the gods confused his mind, confused that driver's mind, and pushed him to say the truth. He's supposed not to say the truth because the king ordered they cannot tell the prince the truth. But well, because of the gods like make fun and to make him say the truth. Okay, so he by mistakes he answered the prince. That was ruined beauty, caused sorrow, and kill pleasures. That which weakens the memory and destroy the scene is old age. He told him that is old age. And he told the prince, he too was once a child, nursing at his mother's breast. He too once crawled upon the floor. He grew. He was young. He had strength and beauty. Then he reached the twilight of his age. And now you see him. The ruin that is old age. So the old age make this young person become like a monster-like person. So that the prince was deeply moved, and he asked, "Will that be my fate also?" The charioteer replied, My lord, youth will also leave you someday. To you too will come troublesome old age. Time saps our strength and steals our beauty. So the prince was shocked. He uttered a deep sigh, and then he shook his hand. He's like, oh, very sad. And his eyes wandered from the wretched man to the happy crowds. He spoke these solemn words. So, old age destroys memory and beauty and the strength in a man. And yet the world is not frantic with terror. Turn your horse around. Let's return to our homes. How can I delight in the gardens and flowers where my eyes can only see old age, where my mind can only think of old age? The prince returned to his palace, but nowhere could he find peace. He wandered through the halls and murmuring, old age, oh, old age. And in his heart, there was no longer any joy. He decided, nevertheless, to ride once again through the city. But the gods made a man afflicted with a loathsome disease. Then they sent him down on the road Siddhartha had taken. And Siddhartha saw this sick man. He stared at him and asked his driver, what is this man with this swallow belly? He looked so weak. He is deathly pale, and pitiful cries escapes from his lips. So he looks awful, not healthy, like very weak and pale, not like a normal person. And he is like breathing hard. He gaps for breath. See, he is falling. And my dear driver, what is this man? My lord, he answered, this man is suffering because of sickness. He is weak now, but he was once healthy and strong. The prince looked at the man with pity, and he asked again, is this affliction peculiar to this man, or are all creatures threatened with sickness? The driver answered, we too may be visited with similar afflictions. O prince, sickness weighs heavily upon the world. When he heard this painful truth, the prince began to tremble like a moonlight reflected in the waves of the sea. And he uttered these words of bitterness and pity. Men see sufferings and sickness, yet they never lose their self-confidence. Oh, how great must be their knowledge. They constantly threatened by this sickness, and they can still laugh and be merry, and they can, still enjoy their life. Oh, turn your horse around, my driver. Our pleasure trips is ended. Let us return to the palace. I have learned to fear sickness. My soul avoids pleasure and seems to close up like a flower in dim light. Wrapped in his painful thoughts, he returned to the palace. King Śuddhodana noticed his son's somber mood. He asked, why does prince no longer went out driving? And his driver told the king what had happened. The king grieved. The king was more anxious now than ever before to keep his son from leaving the palace. He provided him with rare pleasures, but nothing, it seems, could arouse Siddhartha. Nothing can make him happy. And the king thought, I shall let him go out once again, one more time. Perhaps he will recover the joy that he has lost. He gave strict orders to have all the cripples and all who were sick and aged driven out of the city again. He even changed the prince driver into a new staff. So, well, the king wants, this driver wouldn't tell the truth like the one before. And he felt certain that this time there should be nothing that will trouble Siddhartha's soul. Nothing will go wrong. He will just come back to the palace and be the prince and happy again. But the jealous gods made a dead person. Okay, and then 4 men carried this corpse, this dead body. Okay, and others were followed behind, weeping, crying. And this dead body, as well as the men who carried it, and the men were all like very upset in this situation. They are crying, and it's visible to the prince and to the driver when they are like on the street. And the king's son asked, "What is he? What are they doing? What is he carrying? What are they 4 men carrying on their shoulder? What is that?" And then and he asked, "Why are they crying? Why these people like following them like so sad and wear dark clothes and keep crying and like acting so strange?" And the driver should have leave the prince in peace and not tell him, but the will of the gods make a trick and force him to say the truth. So he answered to the prince, "My lord, he has neither intelligence nor feeling or breath. He sleeps without consciousness, like grass or a piece of wood. Pleasures and sufferings are meaningless to him now. His friend and enemies alike have deserted him." So a person, after they died, it is very cruel. It is just like a piece of wood. Everything, whether happy or not happy, everything that he owned has to be left behind. He is just like something useless in this world. So the prince was troubled. And he said, "Is that the condition same to, well, is this the condition happen to this man only, or will this happen like to all of us, all the creatures in the world?" And the driver answered, "This same ends awaits all creatures." So this will happen to all creatures. Everyone will die someday. Wherever they have a humble or of a noble birth, to everyone who lives in the world, death comes inevitably. So we can't avoid death. And then the Prince Siddhartha knew what death was, because he never knew this before. Everything that he comes around are lively and young and beauty, and no one sick, no dead person. So these are all new to him. The prince was confused, very confused. And like he was like, shaken. He had to lean against his driver, and his words were full of distress. So to this, does destiny lead all creatures? So this is the destiny for all of us. And yet, without fear in his heart, the man amuses himself in 1,000 different ways. Death is near, and he takes to the world, high roads, with a song and on the lips. Oh, I begin to think that the man's soul has become hardened. Turn your horse around, my driver. This is no time to wander through the flower gardens. How can a sensible man, a man who knew what death is, seek pleasure in the hour of anguish. But the driver kept on driving towards the garden where the king had ordered him to take his son. Then Śuddhodana commanded, Udayin, who was the son of the household priest and Siddhartha's friend, one's household, had assembled many beautiful maidens and skilled in art of dancing and with songs, and then with the play of game of love. They tried to make the prince happy by sending this pleasure entertainment to him. And the prince just not interested. He lost the vain illusions of strength, of youth, and of life. He no longer joy or grief, doubts or fatigue. He just like really in shock and not really like enjoy, couldn't really think too much at that time. And suddenly he saw a man approaching who looked like a beggar and who was visible to him alone. And then the prince saw this person and he said, tell me, who are you? And then, hero, said the monk, through fear of birth and death, I became a traveling monk. I seek liberation. The world is at mercy of destruction. I think not as other men. I rejected pleasures. I know nothing of passion. I look for solitude. Sometimes I live at the foot of the tree. Sometimes I live in the lonely mountains, or sometimes in the forest. I own nothing. I expect nothing. I wander about, living on charity and seeking only the highest good. He went to the king. He bowed and said to him, King, grant the request I have to make. Do not oppose it, for I am determined. I would leave this palace. I will walk in the path of liberation. We must part, Father. I have to leave you. The king was deeply moved. With tears and his voice, he said to his son, Son, give up this idea. You're still too young to consider a religious calling. Our thoughts in the springtime of life are wayward and changeable. Besides, it is a grave decision to perform serious practices in our youth. Our senses are eager for new pleasures. Our firmest resolutions are forgotten when we learn the cost in effort. The body wanders in the forest of desire. Only your thoughts escapes. You lack experience. It is for me rather to embrace religion. The time has come for me to leave the palace. I will leave. I will go away, my son. Please rule my land and be strong and have the courage. Be courageous. Your family needs you. And first know the joy of youth, then those of later years, before you betake yourself to the woods and become a hermit. So his father said he should stay and be the prince and look after the kingdom when the king can retire, and then later old age can go and practice. So his father tried to persuade him to stay. The prince answered, promise me 4 things, O father, and I shall not leave your house and repair to the woods. What are they? Asked the king. Promise me that my life will not end in death, that sickness will not impair my health, that age will not follow my youth, that misfortune will not destroy my prosperity. You are asking too much, replied by the king. Give up this idea. It is not well to act on a foolish impulse. Then the prince said to his father, if you cannot promise me these 4 things, do not hold me back O father. When someone is trying to escape from a burning house, you should not hinder him. That day comes, inevitably, when we must leave this world. But what merit is there in a forced separation? A voluntary separation is far better. Death would carry me out of the world before I had reached my goal, before I satisfied my passions. This world is a prison. Would that I could free from those beings who are prisoners of desire? The world is a deep pit wherein wander the ignorant and the blind. Would that I could light the lamp of knowledge? Would that I could remove the film that hides the light of the wisdom? The world has raised a wrong banner. It has raised the banner of pride. Would that I could pull it down? Would that I could tear to pieces of the banner of pride? The world is troubled. The world is in turmoil. The world is a wheel of fire. Would that I could, with the true law, bring peace to all men. So above is the story of the 3 trips that the Prince Siddartha get out from the palace. So he saw the world that his father had hidden from him. An old man, a sick man, a dead man. And he asked, how can I lie happily on these silk cushions and not ease this suffering? But how? So on the last ride, he saw a wandering monk who was seeking happiness among human sufferings. This I must do, Siddhartha said. So he gave up his wealth, his royal titles, and all that he loved. He said goodbye to his wife, Yashodhara, and secretly left the palace in the misty night. Leaving his father, his son, and his people, Siddhartha went forth from the city. He felt no regret, and in steady voice, he cried, until I shall have seen the end of life and death, the end of life and of death, I shall not return to the city of Kapila. So he vowed that he has to solve this problem. He has to find the answer. He got to find a way to end this life and death. So what do we learn from here? The king tried hard to protect his son and did not want his son to leave him. So the king tried to hide the truth from the world, tried to hide the truth of this world and make everything in this world look good. No one is getting old. No one is suffering. And no one will get sick. But is that the truth? No, he will get old, and so is the prince. No one in this world will stay happy and healthy forever. Our parents too try to provide the best for the kids, buy them expensive clothes, bags, and toys. They provide the best for the kids because of love. But this spoils the kids. And the kids cannot use anything low class or cheap because they already used to using good quality things. But nothing is perfect and nice as the parents always planned, right? Nothing is like this in reality. So there are many difficulties in the world, and each person's difficulties are different because of the karma they created in the past. So soon thereafter, Siddhartha left the palace and sought the end of suffering. He studied with 2 famous spiritual teachers and then embarked on a journey with 5 companions, meditating and taking up severe ascetics practices, such as prolonged fasting that nearly killed him. So they do very tough ascetic practices like not drinking, not eating, or standing under the sun. Well, they try all sorts of the lifestyle that is harsh, is suffering. So they thought they can get the answer if they suffer like that. So for 6 years, Siddhartha wandered in the forest. He learned deep meditation from the wise teacher, practiced fasting, and thinking this is the way to after everlasting happiness. This is the way to get there. But out of all this pain, he still can't find the answer. He said, I did not find peace in the palace life, nor did I find peace in this kind of aesthetic practice life. There must be a middle way. Near death, he accepted a bowl of rice milk from a young girl that helped him regain his strength. When the 5 companions saw Siddhartha eat rich and delicious food, they thought he had given up, so they left him. With a bowl of milk, let Buddha regained energy and noticed that the practice method he used was not correct. It did not help him solve his questions. See, from this, we can learn that Buddha is very brave. After notice he made a mistake, he put down what he learned for the past few years and take a bath in the river and then focus and restart again. There are many people afraid of changes, even they know the new changes can benefit them. Buddha is not afraid of accept his faults and restart again. We can see in our lives, a lot of people of the older generations like to do things in their way they used to when they are young. So with new technologies, many new devices and ways that can make life easier, more effective. But these people, they don't want to use this. Some people do find this good and use it and really helps their life. But there's still some people, they don't want to make any changes. Even these changes can make them improve their lives. So for us, actually, I think it's good that, if we find a better method, if we know we did wrong in the past, we should quit the bad habit or start again, start fresh and learn and never give up. So at 35 years old, a Buddha will soon get enlightened. So what happened is, going alone, after 49 days, he had a series of insights into the nature of reality. He sat under a Bodhi tree and became enlightened, a Buddha. He saw his true nature and that of all living beings. He understood the cycle of birth and death and how to ease suffering, and taught the path to liberation that he had realized. This was the end of his spiritual quest. Remembering the 5 companions, he found them in the deer park near Benares, and taught them the 4 noble truths and 8-fold path, the pillars of Buddhism. They formed the first order of Buddhist monks, called the Sangha. So from 35 years old to 80 years old, the Buddha spent the next 45 years spreading his teachings throughout India. He was the first religious leader to accept women and untouchables, who are the lowest caste. So he accepts everyone, whatever background they are. The rich and the poor, men and women, kings and slaves, young and old, all were equal in his community. So 2 years after his awakening, the Buddha visited his family in Kapilavastu. The king became a disciple of the Buddha, and many members of the royal family joined the Sangha, including the Buddha's son, Rahula. After the king's death, the Buddha's aunt, Prajapati also became he also like followed Buddha, and she became the first Buddhist nun. She had then ordained Yashodhara, so the Prince Siddhartha's wife also becomes the Buddhist nun, and thousands other women as a part of the Sangha. So at around 80 years old, in his own days, Buddha became the best known and loved of all spiritual teachers in India. He never set himself up as an authority, but was a wise and kind friend to all. At age 80, he gathered his disciples around him. He told them not to follow another leader, but to take the Dharma as their master. His last words were, "All things in life ends. Work diligently for your own enlightenment." Closing his eyes, the Buddha passed into the final state of nirvana. So we have a few questions, okay? Was Buddha a god? In the famous story from the early Buddhist scripture, a man asked the Buddha if he was a god. "No," the Buddha said. "Then what are you?" the questioner asked. "I am awake," was the reply. So a Buddha is not a god or supernatural being, but a person who had reached the peak of wisdom and freedom. From time to time, Buddhists appear in the world, but Siddhartha is the only historical Buddha. So here is the story when Buddha explained to others that he is not a god. In the Dona Sutta, it says, at one time, the Buddha was traveling along the road between Uttar and Sattva, as there was a Brahman, Dona. Dona saw that the Buddha's footprints had 1,000 spoke wheels with the rims and hubs. So it's very unique, complete in details. And he said, "Wow, incredible. It is amazing. Surely this couldn't be the footprints of human beings, because Buddha is different. He got 32 great hallmarks. So his body is a little bit different from others." So the Buddha left the road and sat at the root of the tree cross-legged, and with his body straight and his mindfulness established right there. Then Dona, following Buddha's footprints, and saw him sitting at the tree roots, impressive and inspiring, with peaceful faculties and mind, attained to the highest self-control and serenity, like an elephant with tempted, guarded, and controlled faculties. He went up to the Buddha and said to him, "Sir, might you be a god?" "I will not be a god, Brahman." "Might you be a fairy?" "I will not be a fairy." "Might you be a native spirit?" "I will not be a native spirit." "Might you be a human?" "I will not be a human." When asked whether you might be a god, fairy, native spirit, or human, you answer that you will not be any of these. What then might you be? "Brahman, if I had not given up defilements, I might have become a god, a fairy, a native spirit, or a human. But I have given up those defilements, cut them off at the roots, make them like a palm stump, obliterated them so they are unable to arise in the future. Suppose there were a blue water lily, or a pink or a white lotus. Though it sprouted and grew in the water, it would rise up above the water and stand with no water clinging to it. In the same way, though I was born and grew up in the world, I live having mastered the world, unsullied by the world. Unsullied by the world. So remember me, Brahman, as a Buddha. I could have been reborn as a god or as a fairy flying through the sky. I could have become a native spirit or returned as a human, but I've ended those defilements. They were blown away and mown down. So like a graceful lotus to which water does not cling, the world doesn't cling to me. And so, Brahman, I am a Buddha. So this is the details from the numbered discourses. Okay. So today, some Buddhists often point to this story to explain that they don't worship the Buddha as God, as a god or some kind of a divine messenger. Instead, he was a human being who awakened, attained enlightenment, and through his efforts, as can other humans who follows his teachings. The Buddha image on the altars are symbols of enlightenment states of the Buddha and the Buddha's teaching. When Buddhists bow to the Buddha, they are not worshipping a god, but paying respects to the Buddha's examples and teachings. There is much in early scripture to support this view. So the last words of the Buddha recorded in the Pali Canon have been translated many ways. But in all translations, the Buddha advises the monks attending him to work hard for their own liberation. He does not say, pray to me when I'm gone and I will save you. He says, all conditioned phenomena are impermanence. Strive on diligently. So on the other hand, early scripture does attribute certain godlike powers to the Buddha, suggesting that many early Buddhists did not see him as just a human being. Though there is no all-powerful creator gods in the Buddhism, the Buddha lived in a polytheistic culture. Oh, yeah. So what is it? What does it mean? So it means like there are many gods in the world. Okay, not just one or without. Okay, so Buddha is interacting with other gods. However, these gods that we notice are trapped in the samsara themselves and play no role in helping individuals attaining enlightenment. The stories of gods and other mythical creatures in the Pali canons can be appreciated as like stories. In a famous story in which the Buddha denies he was a god was the story that I told before. He explained that he was no longer to an identity as any type of being. He compared himself to the lotus that is rooted in water and mud, but blossom in clear air. So he will not get dirt, even he grew up from this muddy water. In the same way, he said, he was born in the world and grew up in the world, but he has risen above the conditioned world and was untouched by it. Remember me as the awakened. He told his inquirer. In other words, as an enlightened being, the Buddha was liberated from clinging to an illusionary sense of self and the sufferings that clinging causes. So I think there's only about like a few minutes left, but I still got a bit to go. So I think I will continue my talk next time, but still have a few minutes. Let us, maybe we can talk or share some ideas, or I can further talk about something, the ideas from here. So we still have a few minutes left. Yeah. Any questions or sharings? Oh, yeah. So I think, Buddha is very good. He doesn't want us to pray to him like worshiping, because he wants us to find a way. So he showed us the way. His teaching is the way for us to follow. So we can do this ourselves. Yeah, the teaching is the teachings. But if we don't practice following the teachings, these teachings cannot help us. So his words, his teachings, or the great teachings from great monks is good for us to know. But the important thing is we absorb what's from the teachings. We learn from these teachings, and then we change our lives. We have to change our concepts. Yeah, actually, everyone, our Buddha nature is the same, and we can be enlightened. It's the same as the Buddha. But because we have too many dirt around us, we have attachment, defilements, and we forget that we have the same nature as Buddha. Buddha is a bit different, right, compared with us. For us, we just want to get happy, and we just want to satisfy our desire, and then that's it. We get out of our way. We don't really think about others. The Buddha is not. You see, he was a prince, but he chose to leave his family or his kingdom in order to find the answer, to end the cycles of life and death, end this suffering, not just for himself, but for all sentient beings. So you can see that he has this great compassionate heart that is not very common in us. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have this great compassion as well, but will you sacrifice yourself for the happiness of others? And you know that from these Buddhist Dharma teachings, we can only become better, improve, if we had a great compassion and wisdoms. So how can we have better or greater compassion? Is not to attach to the self, but share what you have with others, and see others like your own or your family, and try to give happiness to them, lift their sufferings, give them what they need, be nice and gentle, and watch our own bodily actions, or really look after our mental and physical activities, so we do not hurt others. Yeah. Oh, so that is next week. Sorry. Yeah. So there's only about 2 minutes left. Anyone want to say something? So, actually, when I remember when I first became a Buddhist, well, I became a Buddhist when I was an adult, but I come across the story of Buddha when I was quite young, in primary school, I guess. But I wasn't paying a big attention to it. I was listening to the radio, and the radio has some Buddhist stories playing, and I hear the stories, but I didn't really think too much about it. But it was interesting, and I remember because of that, I had this interest in my head. And when I'm older, I go back and I want to know about the Buddhist teachings. So, I mean, it is very important for the young people that they have the chance to know the story of Buddha, because Buddha's story is very interesting, and he is a very great being. And he's the person that practice and give us and show us the way to enlightenment. And we should always look up to Buddha, pay full respects, and also change ourselves and our lives to follow his teachings. So I think that is about time. Let's finish. And